The Juneteenth holiday is about freedom. How would you feel when you achieved economic freedom? In the spirit of Juneteenth, highestpaid.online is having a sale on their Core Options trading course. The name of the course is the highest paid part-time job in the World Core Options course. With the course purchase, you have lifetime access to the content, 2 live online meetups a month, and 1 hour of one-on-one consulting. This course has helped people get their economic freedom, and it can help you get yours. With this sale, you get 35% off the course price. Use code JUNE35 to access the sale. This sale will end on June 30, 2024. If you miss this opportunity, you may miss your opportunity to get free. Go to thehighestpaid.online and get started today.
So thanks for watching the video. In America, sports is massive. It's really, really big. There's a lot of money in it. It's going to get bigger and bigger every year. We've seen the NIL deals blow the top off of everything. You're going to start seeing more and more money get put into sports on all levels, from pros down to college, down even to high school, the youth leagues, because of how big of an entertainment vehicle sports is, how it brings people together, the kind of events that you can create around sports. Marketers and businesses really want to be attached to sports because they realize how much of a draw it is for the American public. And as a result, it attracts a lot of people into the space because they want the rewards of being a very, very successful athlete. A lot of the rewards are going to be social, and a lot of the rewards will also be economic, right? But in my opinion, many people are coming for the social reward. In the state of Florida, over an extended period of time, Florida has shown that they have an ability, right, to produce a lot of top tier athletes across different sports. And Florida does it at such a high level that, to me, many Floridians are jaded around sports because we've seen it so many times happen to so many different people. Once people get like a certain age, it doesn't even really move them anymore, right? So it might be really big in high school, but like as people start getting older, they really don't trip on it anymore because they've seen it with so many people. However, for the majority of the country, it's still a big deal to where you can kind of create status for yourself by going and saying, like, I was a D1 athlete. And in some places in America, that means people will look at you differently because you say, I played D1 ball. Well, in Florida, we know that first, playing D1 ball for UCF is not the same way as playing D1 football for Florida. They're not the same, but they're both D1. But people in Florida know that. People in other parts of the country don't know that. Therefore, you can come in and say, hey, I was a D1 football player. And people think that you really play football at a high level, but playing football at FAU, which is D1, is not the same as playing football at Florida. It's not the same, right? There's a guy on this YouTube and he tells people he was a college athlete, which is correct, but he was a college athlete for a school of 900 people that don't even give athletic scholarships. But he just tells people, well, I was a college athlete, so when I speak to college athletes, I know what they're going through. Bro, you play football for a school of 900 people that don't even give athletic scholarships. But he knows people don't know the difference, right? And because of how big sports is, you can do that. You can tell people that you was this top-ranked guy coming out of school, but in reality, you really wasn't because you know people not going to check, right? Or you could have played football for a school that really is known for basketball, but he know people don't know the difference. We do in Florida. We know that you went to a basketball school to play football. See, in Florida, we know the difference, right? And so that's something that, in my opinion, I'm kind of jaded when it comes to sports. I know a lot of other Floridians are jaded when it comes to sports because we've seen so many people be successful in the area of sports. We're happy for them. We're not against them, right? But it don't move us the way it moves people in other metro areas and other demographics, other geographical areas, right? So what we're going to talk about in this video is why I believe Florida produces so many athletes. And I believe there's almost a perfect storm of a lot of different elements that's allowed Florida to do that. Okay. So what we're going to initially go into is some of the numbers around Florida athletes. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay. So now here's an article from NCAA football from CBS. And we're talking about the high school football players that go on to become D1 recruits. This is from 2017. So it's relatively old, but we're still going to use it because we believe it's still relevant. So the top 10 per the NCAA, Florida, 9.9% of high school football players go to become D1 recruits. Georgia, 8.6%. Louisiana, 8.3%. DC area, 7.2%. Right? Maryland, 6.5%. Tennessee, 6.2%. So almost 10% of Florida high school football players go to become D1 recruits. Now, this 2017, this could have changed because I believe that Metro Atlanta probably has moved past Florida from this percentage standpoint, because to me, Metro Atlanta is the hotbed for football right now, right? But that's a whole nother argument. But I believe Metro Atlanta probably has moved past Florida, but Florida still be number 2, right? But what I want you to understand is that at the time of this particular article, 2017, almost 10% of high school football players went on to become D1 recruits. We talked about D1 is a wide range of schools, right? So you got to understand the difference between D1. D1 is a lot of schools, but people use D1 as a way to get into the door. I'm going to train your kid to be a D1 athlete. That don't really mean a lot once you understand what D1 actually means. Division I schools, what it actually means. It don't mean the same as a guy going to UCF as a guy going to Alabama. That's not the same to play football. It does not mean the same as a guy going to play basketball for Duke, right? As a guy going to play basketball for South Florida. Don't mean the same thing. So you got to understand that. Now, here's the next article. This is from TC Palm. This is from 2021, so it's relatively recent, right? We're talking about which Florida counties produce the most Power 5 talent. Now, you got to know what a Power 5 school is. So I would encourage you to Google what is the Power 5 schools for football, right? And we see that the South Florida county that is home to St. Thomas Aquinas, American Heritage Plantation, Deerfield Beach, has produced more Power 5 talent than any other county in the state the past 5 years, right? Not only does Broward boast more Power 5 signees than any other county, its schools produce Power 5 talent at a higher level than any other county, right? So let's go to the schools. We got Orange County, where I'm from, 8 Power 5 signees in that year. We got student enrollment of 70,000 people, right? We go to Osceola, 1 Power 5 signee. They got student enrollment of 9,000. We go to Brevard, 10 Power 5 signees, student enrollment of 24,000. We go down to Broward County, 20 Power 5 signees, student enrollment of 95,000. We go to Miami-Dade, 22 Power 5 signees, student enrollment of 126. And what we've seen from a demographic standpoint is Miami became so congested with talent, a lot of people started moving up north to the suburbs. Because what was the issue with a lot of the Miami schools, especially in what we call the quote-unquote inner city, is that they were so deep with players. A lot of guys felt like, I'm not going to play. So to make sure that they could get a look, they went up to Broward County. And so it worked out for them. You know, sometimes you got to do that as an athlete. You got to go to what's going to create the best opportunity for you. Right? Deerfield Beach has 20 Power 5 signees the past 5 years, more than any other public school in Florida. And so what you're seeing is that these schools are producing a large amount of Power 5 talent. Now, here's an article from the New Yorker, America's Tennis Factory in Florida. It's from 2019. Florida is where the United States manufactures elite tennis players. Other countries have National Federation training centers. America's in Orlando. State has year-round weather, home of big-name coaches, camps, academies, and all the best young players for an aspiring phenom to compete against, right? Families frequently uproot to move here, homeschooling the would-be prodigies during a few hours a day that are not on a tennis court. 10 and 12 and 14-year-olds get evaluated like yearlings on a Kentucky horse farm. So they're making an analogy to people looking at young horses to determine whether or not they're going to be able to race well. They either turn into world-class players, or more often than not, they stall, get injured, and burn out. It's an expensive process. It's the story of a mother, Osaka, working an office job to house her family while her husband tried to do for his daughters what Richard Williams did for Venus and Serena. It's a story of coaches reportedly going unpaid. So one of them filed a lawsuit last month over a contract he says Francois signed that allegedly granted the coach 20% of the future tennis competition earnings of both Naomi and her older sister Mari in return for free coaching in Pompano Beach. Now, here's the tennis academies in the state of Florida, right? We see the Central Florida area. We see out here south of Fort Myers, and we see a large amount of them in Miami. Okay. Now, a lot of places have tennis academies, but Florida has become one of the hotbeds, probably the hotbed for tennis, right, in the whole country. And that's unusual because Florida's not really seen as a rich state. There is a lot of money in Miami, but it's not really seen as a rich state like a Texas, like a California, like New York, like the DMV area. It's really not seen like that. However, tennis is a very, very expensive sport because the coaching is very expensive. So they economically discriminate against people by making the coaching very, very expensive. Therefore, if your parents don't have the money, you can't get the coaching, right? And so what I want you to look at is the USTA National Campus. Now, they built this in Lake Nona. Like, a lot of y'all don't know about Lake Nona. It's southeast Orlando. It's right under the airport. So you're looking at USTA National Campus. Look at the size of that. Now, they moved this up from southeast Florida. It was down south in like the Miami area. They moved it up to Orlando the last few years. Look at the size of that campus, right? Now, you got the weather, you got the culture, you got the money, you got the financing, you got the coaching, and you got the facilities. And so that's why I was talking to a brother who I know who played tennis in college. He played for Hampton. And I was saying that they're setting the Orlando area up to really be for tennis, right? What IMG is for football. People that know football know about IMG, also big in basketball, but really big in football. And they're setting Orlando up for that. And that's why often when it comes to sports, I can get jaded because I can go to Orlando and look at this facility and like, this is actually real. It's not internet, right? And I understand the investment that they're putting in to produce these big time athletes in the sport of tennis. And how, as they start to develop the culture, you're going to get more and more families moving to the Orlando area, right? They're going to start sitting down in the Orlando area. Then they're going to utilize these facilities. They're going to make a name for themselves, which is going to do what? It's going to draw more people to the area. And then it's going to become a feedback mechanism because the USTA has decided to really invest in this area of Orlando. And then as this gets bigger, it's going to blow up Lake Nona. Right? So you think Lake Nona is expensive now, you haven't seen anything, give it 5 to 10 years. What's big to a lot of people is very small to us in Florida, right? Somebody being a big time football athlete don't really move us the way it moves y'all in other parts of the country. It just doesn't. Because the thing about Orlando and thing about Florida is this. Other places like Texas, they spend the money, right? They quick to spend the money, but we don't see the production, right? In Florida, we had the production before the money showed up. That's the difference, right? We were producing, Florida was producing the athletes before the money showed up. In other places like California and Texas, they spent the money before they produced the athletes. Let's keep going. Now, we're going to talk about surfing. A lot of people don't know about surfing. They're not into it because it's very regional. Surfing is very much Florida, California, and Hawaii, right? And so because it's very regional, people often don't know about it. Therefore, they don't know that this guy, right, is considered one of the best surfers in the world. His name is Kelly Slater. Some people consider him maybe the best surfer of all time. I would say he's the best non-Hawaiian surfer of all time. I think the Hawaiians still are the best surfers of all time. I would say he's the best non-Hawaiian surfer of all time. Now, in Cocoa Beach, Florida, you have a really well-known surf shop called Ron John, right? It's been there forever. They're massive. I think that's their headquarters in Cocoa Beach, Florida. And anybody that's in the surfing world knows about Ron John Surf Shop. I would encourage you to go there. If you go to Florida, you go to what we call the Space Coast or the East Coast of Florida. Just go through there, walk through it. You can say you been. You can do your little Instagram thing, maybe do a vlog, and you can leave out. But it's not something that people often talk about because, again, surfing for years has been a countercultural sport. There's a very small group of people that are actually involved in the sport. It doesn't really involve a lot of people. Therefore, people will see this surf shop and not even think maybe I want to go in here, even though it's massive. It's really, really big when you go to Cocoa Beach. And there's not a lot in Cocoa Beach, right? There's just not a lot there. I've been to Cocoa Beach multiple times. There's not a lot in Cocoa Beach. There's the beach, there's Ron John, there's maybe a Publix and some hotels, and that's pretty much about it. But it's a nice place to live if you just want to kick back. Top 10 best surfing spots in Florida, right? Here's an article from Red Bull, the top 10 best surfing spots in Florida. We got Cocoa Beach, we just talked about. We got South Beach. We got New Smyrna. We got Ponce Inlet, which I know about. We got Jacksonville. We got Pensacola Beach. We got Sebastian Inlet, which I also know about. We got Reef Road, right? We got Boynton Beach. We got Flagler Beach, right? Surfing is really big on the east coast of Florida. And so Florida has produced a lot of surfers. They've also produced arguably one of the best surfers of all time. But it's not something that a lot of people talk about because, like I said, it's a counterculture or a subculture of the United States, right? But if you're in that culture, you definitely know who Kelly Slater is. And so what I want to do with this first segment is just give you some documentation and to use some of that to support my argument around why I believe that Florida produces the best athletes. One of the things that we're going to transition to is talking about the weather. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about the weather, because part of my argument is that the weather in Florida gives the athletes an advantage. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me show you this map real quick. Okay, so we look at Florida. Florida is farther south. Once you start going to Central Florida south, then Southern California. So if you look at Diego, farther south, right? Then if you look at the Houston area, we're farther south in Central Florida, Tampa, Miami, right? Fort Myers, Naples. We're farther south than Houston, right? Because if you go farther south than Houston and Texas, you're not really maybe Corpus Christi. There's really nobody living there. It's a nice area, but there's not a lot of people living there. Houston, that's really the major city in that part of Texas, right? You know, you got that Texas triangle. And as a result, we get exposed to a weather that no one else in the United States get exposed to. Because people told me when I moved to Houston that Houston was humid. Houston was not humid to me. Because I'm from Orlando and I lived in Tampa, right? I went to school in Tampa, lived in Miami. Houston was not humid to me. It was hot, but it was not humid. It felt dry to me. Now, maybe from somebody from like Nashville, it's humid. Houston heat felt dry to me, felt real dry, right? Because I'm used to Orlando weather. I'm used to Tampa weather. I'm used to Miami weather. Was not humid to me at all. You don't know humidity till you live in Orlando, right? Or you live in Tampa. I used to play basketball in Tampa in the morning, like 9 o'clock in the morning. And I'm telling you, work out for 3 minutes and your whole shirt is drenched with water because Tampa's right off the water, right? So it's just a different type of humidity. But I believe that because of where Florida, especially Central South Florida, is situated, the weather there is different and it conditions you different. People that come to Orlando that are not used to the city, they may come and, you know, hit the little theme parks, do their little thing, hit the little shopping events, and they leave. They've never really tried to figure out how to get in shape in Orlando. The sun in Orlando is like a laser beam. It's different. Sun in Georgia is different. Georgia to me is a dry heat. It's dry heat in Georgia to me. It's not a very humid environment and the sun feels different. In Orlando, the sun is like a laser beam. It really is. And you got to get used to that sun just beaming on you like that because it will beam on you. And it's something that you got to get yourself ready for. Miami is just really, really, really hot. Like it's very humid. It's very, very hot, right? Tampa, very humid, very, very hot. And you got to condition yourself for it because if you're working out in that kind of environment and you're not used to it, you'll find out that your body doesn't really know how to manage it. I lived in Atlanta for a few years. Then I moved back down to Orlando. It took me 6 months to get back in shape. And I wasn't out of shape. What I don't mean is I wasn't working out. I worked out so much in Atlanta, it was crazy. But I wasn't in shape to work out outside in Orlando. Because in Atlanta, because of the weather, I was spending a lot of time indoors. Right? Where in Orlando, you spend a lot of time outdoors because the weather always allows you to do that. And once I started working out back outside, it took me about 6 months to feel like, okay, I can handle this humidity. Going outside and the air feels very heavy. It took a long time for me to get back in shape to handle that. And I was raised in that environment. It is a different type of weather. Now, going to Orlando, Florida climate. Orlando, Florida gets 233 sunny days per year. The average in the US is 205, right? Also gets 52 inches of rain per year. The US averages 38 inches of rain per year. Now let's go to the average sunny days in Ohio. Let's take Cleveland. They're saying sunny is 66, partly sunny is 97. Total days with sun, I don't know what that means, is 163. But we'll give them the 163. We'll say Cleveland get 163 days of sun, right? Orlando gets 233, right? In Orlando, you're not going to have days where you're going to be snowed in. You're not going to have days where it's going to be so cold you don't want to come outside. You're not going to have days where it's going to be so cold they're telling you not to come outside. Therefore, as a young person in the city of Orlando, you get more days to play outside, to run around, to just go crazy. That's putting you in an athletic condition. Because as a child, what you're doing is you're building your foundation of condition as a child just by running around, going crazy, doing crazy stuff outside. That's how you build your foundation. When you're stuck in the house because of the weather, you're losing your foundation, right? And so what happens in Florida is because of the weather, it allows young people to build a really, really good athletic base that they can continue to build on, right, over the course of their life. Now, let's look at some of the average temperatures in Orlando. The hot season is from May 14th to September 27th, with the average daily temperature above 87 Fahrenheit. We got the hottest month in July with an average high of 90 Fahrenheit. The cool season is from December 3rd to February 25th, with the average high around 74, with the coldest month in January with the low of 52 and the high of 71. Let's go to New York City. The warm season, so they're not calling it, they call it the warm season. In Orlando, we're calling it the hot season, right? The warm season is from June 1st to September 15th, with the average daily high temperature above 76. The hottest month is July, with the average high of 84 Fahrenheit and a low of 71. The cold season lasts from December 2nd to March 11th, with the average daily temperature below 48. The coldest month is January, with an average low of 29 Fahrenheit and a high of 40 Fahrenheit. Now, so here's the difference. In Orlando, in January, you can still work out outside, right? With the average low of 52 and a high of 71. In some places in the country, 71 is warm. In Orlando in January, you can still work out outside in the winter. I go to Orlando for holidays. I show up November, it's not cold. December, for around Christmas time, it's still not cold, right? Where in New York City, right, in January, your average low is 29 and a high of 40 Fahrenheit. That's your high is going to be 40, right? Now, that might not be cold to them. That's cold to me. So we're going back to the weather. In Orlando, you get more time to work out outside, which puts you in better athletic condition. Now, let's talk about vitamin D levels. And this kind of correlates to the weather. Now, this is going to be something that's purely my opinion. I'm not a scientist, but you can go research this. There has been a lot of work done around vitamin D levels being optimized in athletes and how that leads to better athletic performance. In my opinion, not scientific. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a biologist. That's not what I do. I think because there's so much sun in Orlando, especially in Orlando, going down south. So Orlando going all the way down to the southernmost part of the state. The sun there is so intense, it's beaming on you so hard, and you spend so much time outside. Your vitamin D levels are always optimized. In Orlando, you can say, hey, I got to go run some errands. You can leave the house, go do your little grocery shopping, whatever. Make sure you mail some stuff off. And in the 2-3 hours you spend doing that, you will get 30, 40, 50,000 IUs of vitamin D, just getting in and out of your car. You don't have to really sit in the sun in Orlando to get your vitamin D levels up. You just got to move around the city. Where in other parts of the country, you literally got to go outside and literally almost sit in the sun to get your vitamin D levels up. You don't have to do that in Orlando. And I believe that benefits a lot of the athletes because at a very young age, their vitamin D levels are optimized, which helps them develop, helps them build bone density, helps them build muscle mass. Vitamin D is also really, really beneficial to a lot of your organs. It's very much a plus because it's really a hormone that allows you and helps you put you in optimal health. Now, you got to have the other things in place too, right? But in other parts of the country, they do not get the vitamin D exposure through sunlight that we get in Orlando. Now, a lot of people tell you shouldn't spend time outside, it's bad for your skin. It is, but you already outside playing the sport. So you got to take that, right? A lot of direct sunlight is not beneficial to your skin, especially as you get older, but you're already outside playing the sport. Okay. Now you can try to get vitamin D through your food, but in my opinion, the best way to get vitamin D is through the sun. And in an area like Orlando, Miami, pretty much all Central and South Florida, you can get a large amount of vitamin D exposure in a relatively short amount of time. You do not have to sit in the sun all day. Now we're going to get into culture plus money. We talked about this. What has happened in Florida is they built a big sports culture. We've seen that they've done it in tennis. It already existed in the surfing space, and they've done it in football. And what the culture does is it gives so much social status to somebody being an athlete, right? To where they now look to do that to try to get some social status. They made football really, really, really important. So young kids now want to play football because they want to be seen as important, right? Now you would say, well, David, you just said that that's not a big deal. It's not a big deal like y'all think it's a big deal, right? It's a difference. In Florida, you being a big-time athlete is seen differently than maybe another part of the country. So it's a big deal, but it's not a big deal the way y'all see it. Like, you see this athlete and you just fall out. No, we're not doing that. But when they have built a culture around you wanting to play sports as a social status, then you have the money. What I mean by the money is that you have the investment in these particular sports. The schools never talk about how they don't have money for football, right? They just never talk about it. Now, we don't spend the kind of money in Florida. We don't necessarily spend the kind of money they spend in Texas, but they do spend money to make sure that they got equipment, they got facilities. We've seen the kind of capital that's come in on the tennis side. Surfers don't need a lot of money because they got the beach. So they just need to get surfboards, wetsuit surfboards, right? Whatever else they need, because your environment really is the beach. You put the culture plus the money plus the actual environmental advantages that Florida has, right? And to me, it creates a perfect storm to where you start getting these really, really, really successful athletes. We didn't even go into the golf. The golf was a whole nother game. We didn't go into the baseball because we'll be here all day talking about this stuff. And so that's why I believe that Florida has so much success in putting out athletes, is because they combine the environment, the culture, plus the money. That creates a perfect storm for them to put out really, really successful athletes. Hope you got some value from it. Talk to you later.